Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who want to do more than just get through the week. I'm Liz Ferris, this is my husband Evan.
Good morning.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us on this wonderful Thursday. Since it's Thursday, we are going to talk about being connected. And connected is being connected both to the Lord and to other people, because that's where our power comes from. And this week we are talking about kindness, so we're going to talk about being kind to other people and how that affects connection.
So usually we try to start with the problem with the topic. So why don't we just naturally be kind to others, because that breaks down relationships so much. Earlier in the week, we've talked about just the little things of like looking your cashier in the eye, just being friendly and kind. But then in our relationships too, sometimes it's so easy to let things that aren't kind creep in, even in marriages. And it's just so sad.
There's two pieces. There's either the I'm lashing out at someone because I'm stressed and upset about whatever, or I'm just busy. I feel like that's a huge part of why people aren't kind. Being kind takes time. And so if you're going to take time to go a little bit out of your way, you have to have that margin in your life to be able to do that. And so many of us live without margin. So we're just kind of rushing from one thing to the next.
That's one of the things I was thinking of. Like, we're so focused on our own thing and our own problems that kindness might just slip.
Right.
It doesn't, it's not as much of a priority. So that's one of the hopes of what we're talking about. We want to get it more in the forefront of our mind because it's important. It's one of the fruits of the Spirit.
No, it's singular. Fruit of the Spirit is singular. They're not 9 fruits of the Spirit or whatever. Oh. It's all fruit. The fruit of the Spirit.
These are the things that. Okay. Well, yeah, because if you're really in the Spirit, you don't just have 1 or 2 of them and neglect the others. Exactly. They all are part of spiritual life.
It's a package deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, I do think that a big part of it is just being busy and being, especially in Western society, I feel like we always live a little bit in the future. We're really bad. At least I know I am. It's something that I've had to work at a lot. We're bad at just being here and now, kind of like what we'll be talking about more tomorrow, but we're not complete. We live in this place where we're thinking about what needs to be done next while we're here instead of being here.
Yeah, and that does take away from our interactions with the people that are here right now. I mean, it's way too easy to do with your friends, but especially your children or whatever. If you're just focused on, I've got work tomorrow, or I've got this bill to pay, or instead of hanging out.
It could just be, what am I doing after this thing? So I need to get the kids in bed. Oh, I'm gonna make tea, whatever.
Not like we do that. We've got to go make a podcast, squeeze that in somehow, and
So there's a lot that goes on, and so sometimes I think it's not that we're intentionally being unkind. I mean, there are people that are being mean, usually because they're lashing out, like there's something hurt inside of them and they're lashing out. But I think most of us are just neglectful.
Sure. It's just not a priority. Yeah. Yeah, and that self-kindness, like you just touched on, I think so important too. I mean, probably not kind to others. It's kind of like love and self-love.
Right.
If we're mean and unkind to ourselves, and that probably means we're consumed with shame and self-shame, how are we going to be kind to those around us?
Yeah, it's hard when you tell yourself negative things, like we were talking about with criticism. And if you criticize yourself all the time, it's really easy when somebody else criticizes you to take that on. And it's also easy for you to then criticize someone else. I mean, maybe not to the degree that you criticize yourself, but it's still not going to be, it increases your threshold, I think. Yeah. Like if you talk to yourself like a complete jerk all the time, then, maybe you're only like, oh, I'm only going to, do 40% of this with someone else. But if you talk to yourself kindly and sweetly, then you wouldn't be comfortable doing any with anyone else. Yeah, I think it does affect our relationships.
Mm-hmm. And I think getting back to kindness is going to take a shift in focus. I mean, seeing our fellows as someone worthy of kindness, seeing ourselves as someone worthy of kindness. I mean, it's so similar to some of the love stuff we talked about. In the adult Sunday school at church, the teacher said something interesting. He was talking about studying the Bible, but I think it applies here too. One of the reasons that I have the most amount of compassion for people is when I see them as also fallen and like sinners in need of salvation,
right?
Not just people who are out to be mean. And I mean, it's being selfishness and a desire for power, like that's all part of that. Yeah. But if I can see the fallen state first and then look for the ways that God's speaking redemption and offering salvation and things like that, that makes it way easier. Because when I see myself that way too, and not in a shaming way, but just in a like, here's where I'm at and I'm a sinful person, but God's provided this grace.
Can you give an example?
Well, the example from the class was, and maybe this is a little bit of a stretch, was they call it the fallen condition focus. When we're reading scripture, like any story in scripture, a great way to study it is to look for the fallen condition and then to look for God's grace and the redemption. And we love doing that just in media, but he was talking about doing that in the Bible. And so my little stretch here is doing it with our friends. So you want an actual example?
Yes, I was just going to say, can I have an example?
Well, I'll give...
I haven't from Paddington.
No, I have one from my own life.
Is it?
But it's sad.
Sharing?
Yeah, sure. It's not my. It's someone I knew. So I was bullied a little bit in school. But everybody was, right. But there was a guy that I rode the bus with that was bullied more than anybody. So I think part of the reason I didn't bully him was because I knew what it felt like. But I could just see his fallen condition. Like he was...
You keep saying that, but I have no idea what you mean by that.
Oh.
I need a more tangible... What do you mean by fallen condition?
I could see the way he'd been broken. Like he was... I didn't have the words for it then, but looking back, it's like he was abused at home. And then when he came to school, he was just a mess, right? And so I could see that damage.
Okay, so you don't mean like sinfulness. You mean like the ways that sin has injured us.
Yeah, but even if I can't see something obvious like that, where it's like this person's obviously been traumatized by their family, everybody is lost in their sin. So if I have that in mind, because I'm in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
Without God's grace. So let's be kind to one another, is I guess.
Okay.
That's something that helps me. Maybe you're looking at me like it.
No, okay. I feel like I had to drag it out of you. I'm still trying to figure out okay, yes, that definitely helps me too, to be like, okay, this is where this person is coming from. They're not intentionally trying to be this way. Like this is how their circumstances and their personality have converged to.
Sure. And even if they are being intentional, I mean, the mean and nasty people are that way for a reason too.
Right, but it's not intentional in the sense that they're like just started out from day one and they were like, oh, I'm going to be a mean and nasty person.
That's right.
It's that like they've gotten warped.
Mm-hmm.
Their pain has made them respond in that way.
Yeah. And I want to be careful. We're not talking about this kind of bizarre doctrine of like people are born innocent, like that song, and like we're not born into sin. But I think people do have a great capacity to connect and love, and babies are ready to do that, and it's in children. And if it doesn't happen, or if there's abuse and neglect, or just getting banged up and bumped up in the world, we make certain decisions to cope with that. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like we've all been doing whatever we've been doing to try to get by. A little kindness goes a long way.
Yeah, I wrote down that kindness is a bridge. It's so amazing how being kind just instantly creates this connection with people. And it doesn't take a lot of effort. And that's part of the reason why I think it's so important to have margin in our lives, so we can be just a little bit of room.
Right. So you can take a 5-minute diversion and help somebody, or have a chat,
Right.
At the bus station or whatever it is. You're not rushing so much.
We just watched Paddington 2 today, and it was making me think about how his kindness just changes all the people around him.
The story was okay, but the visuals and kind of the idea, I mean, it really was a movie about kindness. It was really neat.
It was really cool because it brought the whole neighborhood together just because he was a little kind, a little polite, a little friendly.
He knew different people's thing, right? I mean, the garbage man was studying to, I guess he was in school so that he could eventually not be a garbage man. And all these different people had their thing, and Paddington knew it, and he was interested in it.
So that kindness just creates that connection. And then I think, too, it helps create that space for people to feel safe enough to actually change,
Mm-hmm. I think for Paddington, and maybe this is sort of what I was trying to get at, too, like, it comes from a place of genuine interest in other people, but it also comes in I'm not better than you and you're not better than me kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
like we're just people here. And so our pride gets in the way of our ability to have kindness too, I guess.
Right. All right. Well, hopefully that gives us all something to think about. I feel like it was a little nebulous today, but
it's the after hours sessions here. It's a little late.
Yes. But kindness really is what draws us together. Let's try to make sure we have some margin in our lives so we can afford to be kind.
Yeah. And this is maybe a concept that is pretty easy to understand, but is it something we give priority to? Yes. So you can make it a goal and follow through with that goal. Maybe let somebody know that you're working on it.
As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome or not, whether you're going to strengthen those neural pathways to look for the good things in life. We love you guys, and we are praying for you. Thanks so much to everybody that's been listening to the show and sharing the show. We really appreciate it. Come back tomorrow, and we are going to talk about how kindness and love are different.
Sounds good.
All right. Have an awesome Thursday, you guys.